So here we're looking at Algebra Notes 1-5 on how we add and subtract real numbers. We're also going to look at if we can find the absolute value of a number. So we want to start with what opposites are. And I kind of always like to start with what's the opposite of up? And we all know it's down. What's the opposite of left? And we all know it's right. The opposite of tall would be short. And so we have opposites in math. And so if we have the opposite of, for example, the number 5, its opposite would be -5. And you probably noticed I put a comma between them. They're not equal. Okay, they are not equal at all. So the opposite of a -2 would be a +2. And then the opposite of a 1/2, a fraction, would then be the -1/2. And what we know about opposites is that if I were to add 5 and -5, I get 0. So all opposites added together equals 0. Let's write that down. All opposites added together equal 0. So all opposites added together equal 0. 5 plus -5 is nothing. -2 plus 2 is 0. Opposites are important. We also want to talk about what absolute value is. And we have a definition for the absolute value of a number, and it is the distance from 0 on a number line. So if we look at the absolute value of a number, we are trying to identify how far that number is from 0. So we have symbols. The absolute value symbol is 2 bars. Looks like parallel bars. And this is the symbol of absolute value. And so if I were to ask you, or you saw the absolute value of 5, what that means is how far is 5 from 0 on the number line? And you would tell me that the distance is 5 units. So it equals 5. If I were to tell you, or ask you, I should say, what is the absolute value of -3? Well, what you would tell me is that how many spaces is -3 from 0? It is 3 spaces away. And so what you're going to notice here is that even if we're moving forward or backward, we're still moving. And so when we take the absolute value and we're finding a distance, the smallest distance we can have is nothing. We cannot have a negative distance. And so we, even though we are located at -3, we still are going to move +3 spaces to get to the 0 mark. And that is true when you have the negative symbol on the inside of the absolute value. One last example that would be important to go over is what happens if this symbol is on the outside. So I have a negative, and then I have the absolute value of 7. Well, you ask yourself, the absolute value bars mean how far is 7 from 0, and it is 7 spaces. And because the negative is on the outside of it, your answer here is a -7. Absolute value can kind of get a little tricky at times, but I want you to think of the absolute value bars as you're looking at what is inside of them. Everything outside is going to stay what it is. We're going to talk addition and subtraction with real numbers, meaning positive numbers and negative numbers. And probably my favorite thing to think about here is to think about our opposites and to think about positive and negative signs. So let's start with, if I gave you 3 plus 5. You all know that answer, and you know that answer is 8. And I want to represent it with what I call the chip method. And so to represent the whole number 3, 3 is a positive, so we have 3 positives. And 5 is positive, so I have 5 more positives. And so what do I have in all? I have 8 positives. And if you need to write out your pluses signs and minus signs to help you figure these out, please do so. We also have 3, let's try this one, plus a negative 5. And again, I like to do my plus and minus symbols. I have 3 plus signs because positive 3. I have 5 negative signs. And you just told me up above that positives and negatives cancel out. So 1 positive and 1 negative equals 0, so I can cross it off. And 1 positive and 1 negative equals 0, so I can cross it off. And again. And so what do I have left? We have 2, and 2 of what? 2 negatives. So this is a negative 2 as your answer. So again, making sure that we actually write out our positive and our negatives and cancel out our opposites, and we can see what we have left. And then we know that if we have, last example for addition, a negative 3 plus a negative 5, well, 3 negatives, 1, 2, 3, and 5 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have 8 total in that whole group. Nothing to cross off in that entire group. So we're left with negative 8. So we need to be very careful. I know you get to use a calculator, but we still need to be pretty fluent with understanding how to add and subtract positive and negative numbers, and we should be able to do the basics pretty quickly. We're going to move on to subtraction. And honestly, we're going to treat subtraction the exact same way. Okay? Except I'm going to have you, and I'm going to ask for you to get into the habit of any time we see subtraction, I really want to change it to addition. And it's only because things are going to get much more challenging in your mathematical career. And if you get in a habit of changing subtraction to addition, then your life is going to be much easier. So let's talk about when do we need to change subtraction to addition. That's the first question. And I will tell you that we can kind of, hopefully, just use our own common sense. For example, if I had 5 take away 2, I don't think we need to change that to addition. 5 minus 2 is 3. You have a positive number that is larger than what you're taking away, and we should be able to do that subtraction. However, what happens if we see something like this? Five take away a negative 2. That looks a little more complicated. This would be an example where you might want to change subtraction to addition. And so how do we do that? We're going to type this down and write this out. So to change, we are going to keep the first number. We are going to change the subtraction. Forgot my H. We're going to change the subtraction to addition. And we are going to change the last number to make it the opposite. Keep, change, opposite. So let's walk through how I would keep, change, and the opposite of this number. We're going to keep the 5. We're going to change from subtraction to addition. So we keep the first number, we change to addition. And what's the opposite of a negative 2? It is a positive 2. Doesn't that look so much prettier? 5 take away negative 2 is the exact same thing as 5 plus 2. 5 plus 2 is a lot easier to do. It's 7. You knew that. So I want us to get into a habit again of changing our subtraction to addition. So here's another one where I would probably change -8, take away a -13. Keep the first number the same. You're not changing it. It's staying -8. Subtraction we can change to addition. And the opposite of a -13 is a +13. And we kind of like the looks of that a little better. And now you can use what we did on the front, where if we want to put our 8 negatives, and we want to put our 13 positives, and we know that a positive and a negative cancel out. And what we have left, -8 plus 13, is 5 positives. So please get into a habit. I'm going to say it a lot. Change your subtraction to addition. Have a great day.